This story is completely crazy. He bought a gold ring for 10 yuan. In a world where food is the only strong currency, that ring transported him to a zombie apocalypse with 2 buckets of tomatoes. Yes, that's right, tomatoes. In this world, he realized that tomatoes were worth more than gold. Now, together with 2 sisters, he must turn this wealth into strength to survive in this chaotic world. Amid the storm and the city's destruction, monsters roam the streets. Soon after, a young man wakes up tied up in an unknown place, where a woman asks him what his name is. Suddenly, the sound of a belt snapping makes his eyes widen. Then the woman stretches out the object and questions him about why he invaded their base. Still immobilized, the young man replies that his name is Song Chao, and that he was just passing through the area. However, not believing him, the woman tells him to stop stalling and save both of their time. She then points to a girl eating tomatoes and asks why he would carry something so precious with monsters everywhere. At that moment, the other girl spits out what she was eating and asks if he injected anesthetic or something similar into the tomatoes. Right after the question, the girl starts coughing non-stop while the other 2 just watch the scene. As soon as she recovers, she tells her sister Shen Jiao that she already tested the tomatoes and they only have pesticide residue. That the woman, now called Shen Jiao, just places her hand on her forehead at her sister's comment. Taking advantage of the distraction, the boy asks if the 2 sisters could please untie him first. In response, he only receives a whip strike. Next, Shen Jiao leans over him and warns that after falling into the hands of the dude from West City, he shouldn't try any more tricks. Finally, she stares at him and tells him not to think that a pretty face will stop him from being attacked, before demanding that he tell the truth. From the corner of his eye, Song Chao observes the woman's reaction. Immediately, Shen Jiao grabs him by the collar and yells, asking where the tomatoes came from and if there were more. Upon hearing the question, he just realizes that he has truly traveled to an apocalyptic place. At that moment, the young man remembers how dangerous and cautious he had to be while traveling alone, finding the tomatoes next to a creature and almost being killed by another before being saved. Suddenly, his body is thrown to the ground once again. Then Shen Jiao accuses him of plotting something and demands that he tell the truth. Without giving him time to answer, she threatens him if he doesn't quickly say what he knows. Desperate, he begs the woman to stop being rough and assures her that he wasn't sent by anyone. Hearing this, the girl simply lets him go, making him fall. On the ground, he explains that he came from another base to trade, and that he can offer more tomatoes if they help him. Faced with the offer, Shen Jiao is surprised at the possibility that he might have more. Then the woman questions what kind of trade he planned to make and if, by any chance, he was a slave trader. Thus, the 2 stare at each other in silence for a moment. Suddenly, the other complains that the tomatoes are too sour and asks if he has anything else. Right after, she ends up demanding that he also get vegetables and eggs. At once, Shen Jiao tells her foolish sister to calm down and asks where it would be possible to find eggs in this world. She then explains that chickens have mutated and that their eggs are no longer edible. With this revelation, Song Chao realizes that even basic items like vegetables and eggs have become rare commodities, concluding that it was already too late for that place. Now free, the young man gestures and asks what kind of goods he can trade for food. Meanwhile, he reflects on having arrived there because of a strange ring and decides he needs to make a profit to help his family. With that, Shen Jiao starts listing the items they have available for trade. During the negotiation, the woman offers energy modules, laser weapons, and even beautiful women as slaves. However, the mere mention of buying women leaves the young man completely shocked. In his mind, he begins to imagine the possibility of trading eggs and tomatoes for beautiful women. Immediately, Shen Jiao grabs him again and accuses him of being interested in slave trafficking. However, he denies everything and says it was a misunderstanding, as he wanted to trade for gold and diamonds. She just watches him with a suspicious look. Then the woman asks why he would even need items like those. Shen Jiao points outside and says that such things haven't had any value for a long time. Right after, she stares at him intensely and demands to know who he really is. Caught off guard, Song Chao hesitates, unsure of how to respond. Then he changes tactics and explains that in his base food is abundant, so everyone values items to please women. Finally, he proposes that they make transactions so both sides can get what they need, whether food or jewelry. Faced with the proposal, Shen Jiao questions how the trade would work, and if he could supply tomatoes regularly despite the radiation. With a smile, the young man assures her that his base has so much food he can come every few days as long as they accommodate him. The 2 sisters immediately react to his choice of words, with the older one warning they don't provide special services. He then clears up the misunderstanding and stresses that he just needs his personal safety guaranteed when he arrives. The 2 exchange glances for a moment, considering the offer. Then the older sister agrees to the deal but warns that they need to make the price very clear. Pointing to the buckets, Shen Jiao sets the rate. 1 tomato can be traded for 10 kilos of gold or items of similar value. Without hesitation, he agrees to the terms and says that to start the partnership, those tomatoes are theirs. To seal the deal, the woman takes one of the tomatoes as provisions and eats it right after. While eating, Shen Jiao comments that she hasn't had something so clean in years. With that, the young man says that now that the negotiations are over, he would like to say goodbye. Before he can finish the sentence, his head is slammed against the wall and the woman tells him he can move around freely. Then she clarifies that leaving the factory or being out of her sight is not an option. Right after, she explains that the mutant beasts in the area have been contained but not completely. Thus, the woman warns him not to blame her if he decides to wander off and ends up meeting his end. Unfazed, he asks if he can look for a bathroom. With a red face, she shouts that it's fine and he can go. Upon leaving the warehouse, the young man celebrates finally escaping that place. Soon after, he stops and reflects that there must be a reason for everything that happened that day. The answer comes when he remembers that the ring on his finger was the cause of his travel between dimensions. Then he recalls buying the ring at his stall and thinking it wasn't anything special. Curious, he decides to spin the stone on the ring to see what might happen. Immediately, the object emits an intense glow that engulfs him completely. Then a bright light transports him to another place as he watches in shock. In the middle of an energy portal, his body was pulled into a vortex. Soon after, he reappeared in a new place as the surrounding energy dissipated. Looking around, Song Chao realized he had returned to a familiar field and announced that he was back. At that moment, he remembered the seller saying he had a bright future, and that the celestial ring would be sold only to him. Finally, the man offered a discount and gave him the ring for just 199 yen. The young man just kept wondering who that old man really was. One last memory of the old man being chased by the police surfaced in his mind. With that, he stopped for a moment to process all the information. Faced with the situation, Song Chao scratched his head and decided he needed to find the old man to ask him questions. Suddenly, a voice called his name and told him to stop where he was. Immediately, a woman confronted him, demanding to know when he would pay the 10,000 yen his family owed. Not knowing what to say, the young man just tried to come up with an excuse. Soon after, the woman explained that she needed the money because her son would be going to college soon. Clasping his hands, he begged Aunt Zhang for a few more days to pay the debt as soon as he had the money. At that moment, he remembered borrowing the amount to treat his sick parents. The hope of getting gold from that other world to fix everything was his only motivation. While he tried to justify himself, the woman complained that he had promised to pay years ago and always found excuses. Desperate, he promised to pay the debt within 3 days with interest, but she only sneered and said his parents would be better off dead. Upon hearing such words, his eyes glowed red as she continued insulting him. In a quick move, Song Chao almost struck her and threatened to kill her if she said one more word about his family. The woman just stared at him, completely frightened by his reaction. With his fist against the wall, he assured her he would pay the money the next day with interest so she wouldn't worry. Soon after, he told her to leave immediately, while she watched him in shock at his behavior. Still shaken, the woman accused him of scaring her and threatened to find someone to force him to pay if he didn't keep his promise. He just watched her leave in silence. With his fist clenched, he decided he should take this opportunity to give his family a better life. The next day, outside the market, the young man prepared 2 buckets full of fresh vegetables. After placing the buckets next to a box, he confirmed everything was ready to go. With everything prepared, he spun the stone on his ring to activate the portal. Right after, a large vortex of energy opened before him, ready to transport him to the other world. As soon as he arrived, he confirmed that the return point hadn't changed, but then the barrel of a gun appeared at his side. In an instant, the weapon was pressed against his forehead. Right after, a female voice welcomed him while her finger tightened on the trigger. Then Shinjiao asked why he had taken so long to return. With a smile on her face, she questioned his sudden disappearance the day before. Nervous, the young man tried to calm down and explain that he had just gone back to get some food. Then he turned and asked if they didn't want vegetables and eggs, saying that he claimed he would show them what he had brought. At that moment, when he looked at his hands, he saw there was nothing there and became confused. Soon after, the younger sister called Shinjiao to come see what had appeared. On the ground, 2 buckets full of fresh vegetables and a box of eggs had appeared out of nowhere. Seeing that, the older woman just stared at the items, unable to hide her surprise. Immediately, with her mouth watering, she swallowed hard at the sight of the food. Then Shinjiao ordered him to go cook, and he agreed right away. Shortly after, the young man was preparing the food while the 2 sisters eagerly ate the fresh vegetables. While the younger sister celebrated finally eating fresh greens, the older one asked if he was hiding the food nearby. She then explained that as far as she knew, there was nothing around but zombies and mutant beasts within a 10-kilometer radius of the base. With a suspicious look, she pressed him to say where on earth he had gotten that food. In the end, Song Chao replied that he always took enough food with him when he left and told her not to worry about the rest. Right after, he changed the subject and asked if there was a safe nearby so they could start working together. Even so, the woman explained that they were in the residential suburbs and that even if there was a safe, they wouldn't have the equipment to open it. Hearing this, the young man just grimaced. Indignant, he accused her of being a fraud since there was no safe to get the gold she had promised in exchange for the tomatoes. With a smile, Shenjiao winked and said that while there was no safe here, what he sought was probably in the nearby villages. Then she hurried him to get going, but the woman questioned his rush since she had just filled her stomach. Determined, the young man insisted that he was in a hurry and they needed to go quickly. At last, she stared at him for a moment before making a decision. Then, with a gesture, she agreed to go out for some post-dinner exercise. Right after, she instructed her sister Jaime to stay and guard the base against any intruders. To finish, she gave the final order to shoot to kill if anyone appeared. As they left, Song Chao asked if she would be fine on her own without her sister, but Shen Jiao just said he was still there. Then the woman reassured him, saying they had already swept the area for mutants many times. As they passed through the door, she informed him that when they arrived, he could take everything he found. While getting ready to leave, Song Chao introduced himself as just an ordinary guy who had traveled to the future and was a bit panicked. A little earlier, Shen Jiao had thrown a watch at him, ordering him to put it on. With the object in his hand, the young man asked if it was just a toy. Right after, he inspected the device and wanted to know how it worked. Surprised, the woman stared at him upon realizing he didn't know how to use the device. So he explained that he wasn't a fighter and had never even seen the monsters she mentioned. Hearing this, Shinjiao sighed and revealed that it was a soldier's multifunctional watch. Then she began to explain that the watch could track his location. The device was also capable of detecting environmental radiation. The demonstration ended when his helmet activated, showing the function to contact teammates. Without wasting time, she grabbed him by the shirt and told him to move out immediately. While guiding him to a motorcycle, the woman commented that he could study the watch during the trip. The sight of the wheel-less motorcycle made him react with astonishment. Once on the vehicle, Shen Jiao directly asked if he was from that world or not. Then she questioned how he didn't know what a maglev was as she prepared to depart. With the visor activated, the soldier just glanced back at him for a moment. Caught off guard, he stammered and swore he was from that world. However, she just stared at him through the visor, unconvinced. Not caring much, she just told him to hold on tight. With a strong boost, the bike took off and sped quickly through the air. Startled by the sudden takeoff, the young man clung to her tightly to avoid falling off the moving vehicle. Annoyed by the contact, she yelled at him to let go immediately. Still, he stayed clinging to her the whole ride. Because of that, the woman threatened to cut off his hand if he moved it. After a while in the air, he commented on how silent the place was. While they crossed a field, he asked again, and she reminded him they had already cleared the area. She explained there was nothing there except zombies and mutant beasts. Right after, a creature leaped from the grass toward them, proving the place only stayed quiet after a slaughter. Frightened by the surprise attack, the young man shouted for her to be careful. Without hesitation, Shen Jiao drew her weapon and aimed at the approaching creature. With a smile, she told him to relax because Auntie's here. As they moved away, she said not to make a fuss as it was just a rat, leaving the destroyed body behind. Curious, he asked if the weapon was for sale and how much food it would cost. She simply replied that the laser weapon wasn't worth anything. Then she said he could get one for just an egg once they reached Linjiang Base, while the futuristic city rose on the horizon. The idea of trading an egg for a weapon left him thoughtful for a moment. As they flew over a luxury condo, Song Chao reflected that in that apocalyptic world, one had to be armed to the teeth. Upon landing in front of a fountain, Shen Jiao announced they had arrived at the place. Soon after, the two approached a large mansion. Then the woman pulled out 2 pistols and loaded them. She told him to stay close to her and not wander off, and he immediately agreed. When they reached the door, she said it had been a while since she was last in that area. Then she warned that the exploration might be a bit troublesome before entering the house. Peeking through the gap, the young man reacted with surprise at what he saw. The living room, though luxurious, was completely ransacked and covered in bloodstains. He just swallowed hard at that sight. Even with the mess, he noticed that even the couch would be worth a lot, but his partner urged him to hurry before nightfall. Climbing the stairs, the woman instructed them to go straight to the master bedroom. Once inside, she explained that valuables were usually kept there. After a quick glance, Song Chao commented that it didn't look like much and suggested they leave. Suddenly, Shen Jiao stomped hard on the floor, startling him with the noise. Right after, he was astonished by what he saw. A secret door with a safe was revealed, and the young man asked how she knew it was there. With a distant look, she explained that her former home had been even more luxurious, so she was used to hideouts like that. Then she helped him shoot the safe's lock. With the door open, the two stepped inside and found a miniature golden ship. Seeing the treasure, the young man celebrated finally finding what he was looking for. Faced with so much gold in boxes, he realized he would get rich this time. Shen Jiao then suggested he check if he wanted anything else before going to the next place. With his eyes shining, Song Chao held the solid gold ship and exclaimed that it was exactly what he wanted. Suddenly, his eyes were drawn to something else inside the safe. In one of the drawers, he found a lone ring. He picked up the object, thinking that something hidden so well in a secure room had to be valuable. After examining the ring closely, he decided to keep it for now. With the golden ship in hand, he said he was ready and they could leave. Suddenly, a noise outside made the young man widen his eyes. As soon as he asked what was happening, Shen Jiao told him to be quiet and warned she had heard something. Not understanding what was happening, Song Chio just watched the scene. Meanwhile, Shen Jiao went to the window to see what was outside. Suddenly, her watch started beeping, and she wondered if it was them. Seeing her reaction, the young man wanted to know what was going on and if it was a friend. The woman explained that they weren't friends, but rather a group from the southern suburbs who had tried to sell them as slaves several times. She then revealed that the group was being attacked by a swarm of mutant wasps. With a smile, Shen Jiao simply commented that they deserved what was happening to them. Right after, Song Chio's watch also beeped, showing a hologram of the mutant wasp. Given the situation, the woman figured this was the perfect chance to get rid of them once and for all. With that in mind, she decided they needed to jump out the window before being seen. Without hesitation, Shen Jiao leaped while Song Chao only watched from inside. The woman landed safely on the ground. Right after, he also jumped but fell clumsily, making her comment on his terrible physical shape. She then asked if it was possible that he had never been injected with genetic enhancers. While running, he asked if there was a way to buy them, and Shen Jiao replied that one cost about 30 eggs. Hurrying him, she told him not to talk and just run, while clearing a path with gunfire through the wreckage. Soon after, one of the men from the other group shouted for them to stop and help. Without hesitation, the woman shot at them and replied she wouldn't help at all. Then she handed a weapon to Song Chao and ordered him to help shoot. With the gun in his hands, the young man froze, not knowing what to do. As the bullets whizzed past them, Shen Jiao insisted that he hold the weapon and help her. As soon as he took the gun, the young man just stared at it, unsure of what to do. Right after, he admitted he didn't know how to use that kind of weapon. Upon hearing that, the woman just clicked her tongue in disapproval. Because of this, she complained about her bad luck in accepting his job while her watch beeped. Suddenly, 2 grenades materialized in her hand. Not understanding, the young man asked what those objects were. Right away, his partner explained that they were flash and smoke grenades. Then she threw them and warned him not to forget to bring food to reimburse the items. Soon after, the enemy just screamed in confusion as the artifacts exploded. Amid the smoke, the woman yelled for him to run, but the enemy spotted them. At that moment, the man fired in their direction and cursed at them, not to try to escape. Although an energy shield activated to block the shot, it ended up breaking on impact and hit her directly. Seeing the scene, Song Chao shouted her name, Shen Jiao. Even wounded in the shoulder, the fighter just glared at him with one eye closed. As blood ran down her shoulder, he shouted her name again. Worried, the young man asked if she was okay, but his partner assured him it was nothing and told him to keep running. Then she ducked to dodge the bullets coming her way. Meanwhile, the enemy kept shooting at the mutant wasps that were chasing them. In the meantime, the two ran down the street as the creatures fired energy projectiles. With her gun in hand, Shen Jiao began shooting back. Soon after, she prepared for direct combat. At that moment, the woman leaped toward the motorcycle that appeared floating in the air. Already at the controls, she reached out her hand to him and shouted for him to grab it. Without hesitation, the young man gripped her hand tightly. Seeing their escape, the enemy yelled at them not to dare run away. Finally, now on the bike, the pursuer shouted her name one more time as they sped off at high speed. While the younger sister just grumbled about the situation, Shen Jiao tended to her wound as Song Chao apologized and promised not to back down next time. With her hair now tied up, the warrior advised him to practice shooting as she couldn't count on his fighting skills. Then she used a medical injector that instantly sealed the wound on her arm. Surprised by the medicine's effectiveness, the young man realized he needed to prepare food to trade for the drug as soon as possible. Suddenly, he said goodbye, saying he had something to do and would see them next time. At that moment, Shen Jiao asked if he was sure he wanted to leave since the enemies could return at any minute. Even with his back turned, he insisted he couldn't stay and really needed to go back now. Seeing his insistence, the woman just told him to go while he promised to bring more food as compensation. Right after walking away, Song Chao looked around to make sure he was alone in the warehouse. With the place secure, an energy enveloped him and he vanished completely. Soon after, the younger sister peeked from behind a pillar and confirmed he had left. Then Shen Jiao picked up her destroyed armor and cursed the bastards from the south for the damage. With a look of disappointment, she realized she could no longer use that outfit. When asked what it was, the fighter tapped her communicator and reported that he had completely disappeared. Back at the base, the veteran called her sister Shen Jiao on the communicator to have her return. With the damaged jacket in her hands, she simply found the situation interesting. Right after, the woman reflected that the young man really had something special. Faced with everything, she sat down and began thinking about what to do next. Meanwhile, far away, Song Chao looked at the golden ship and celebrated finally being able to improve life back home. As soon as he returned to his own time, he went to a shop on a sunny afternoon.